Hello and welcome. Today we're discussing this November 2017 stamp set by Hero Arts. It's got a set of coordinating dies, and we're going to use these to make 10 cards. I hope you find the cards inspirational. If you do, please hit subscribe, leave me a comment so I feel inspired to continue making more of these videos, and I hope you enjoy the cards. Alright, for card number 1, the first thing I did is out of craft cardstock, I die cut a stitched frame. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to die cut the Christmas tree die out of the top section of this frame. The kit came with some red baker twine, so I'm just using that to accent the bottom of this tree. Alright, I'm going to stamp Merry Christmas and VersaFine. I wish I had done this before I put fun foam on the back of my panel, but we're just going to do the best we can to see if it works. I'm using VersaFine so it's a little easier to stamp than... Okay, now I can adhere this panel down to my card base, and we've got card number 1 all done. Alright, for card number 2, I'm going to use some of the snowflakes that are in the stamp set. I cut a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 piece of navy cardstock for the back of my card, and I'm going to do a panel that opens up on my card like this. This way it's white inside to write a note versus having a navy inside, which is harder to write on. So this is just shy, so this would be 4 inches by 5 1/4. And I'm going to set that aside because I'm not going to do my stamping directly on that. I cut 3 pieces of cardstock. These are, I believe they're 3 1/2 by 1 1/2, and I'm going to push them up against each other so it's like I'm stamping on one panel, even though they're 3 separate panels. That. And this is not white cardstock. This is actually ivory, and it has little flecks of color in it. So I didn't want to do white. I thought it was too stark, so we're doing cream. And I'm going to use navy ink to stamp my sentiment. And I chose Warmest Wishes because we're doing snowflakes. And I'm going to stamp this in the, I think I'm going to stamp it in this bottom corner here. And in the navy ink, I'm going to use one of the snowflakes to start creating. I'm kind of stamping corner to corner. It's kind of what I'm going for here. And I'm going to put the navy away for a second. I'm going to wipe this off, and I pulled out this silver ink that I have, and I'm actually not 100% sure how well this is going to show up, but I figured it would add a little bit of sparkle no matter what. So I'm going to add just a couple of these. Oh, I didn't clean up real well. The navy left a little bit, but that's okay. I'm okay with that. Actually helps it show up just a little bit, so it's kind of like a sparkly navy ink. Right there. Alright, cool with that. Pays to clean your stamps off a little bit. So I'm using a baby wipe to wipe this off again. And I'm going to pull out the smaller snowflake in this set. And in a lighter blue, I'm going to add some of these. You could probably use temporary adhesive if you wanted to tack this down to your scrap paper, but I was kind of impatient, so just kind of trying to see if that feels balanced. I think that looks alright. Alright, so close that up. This way. And I'm going to use my scissors to poke little holes in the top corner of this card. And I have 2 silver brads for accents. Kind of going along with that blue and silver theme. And let's see how these look on here. If it's too lost, I might put it on a blue cardstock. We'll see how it looks here. Undecided. So I'm going to take some foam. I'm planning on popping these up anyway. I'm going to put some foam onto the back of each of these panels. Okay. I actually really like that. I think the dimension is just enough on this, so I'm going to glue these down. Oh, before I glue them down, I'm going to do one more thing. I was going to glue these down, but I thought of one more little touch that we could add to this, and that is I'm taking a stipple brush, which is something that I've had forever, and I'm just stippling a little bit of blue just to add a pop more of color, and the tips of this brush just adds like a dusting of blue. It's real subtle. I'm not even sure the camera's picking it up a little bit. And I'm kind of, again, working corner to corner. I want the eye to follow along this edge. And I like that. Just adds a tiny bit more color. And now I'm going to glue this down. And because this glue just stays wet a second, I'll put something on top of this to dry so that they make sure that they're adhered flat. But there's card number 2. Alright, for card number 3, what I've done so far is I've cut a card panel down and I embossed it with this Cuttlebug embossing folder. It's a really nice, pretty snowflake pattern, but what I like about it is it kind of leaves this open space here. So I'm going to set that aside. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try out this Delicata ink. I've never tried this before. This is new. This came in the kit. And I'm inking up the ornament. And so far it's a really pretty gold. And I'm going to just stamp that onto a piece of white scrap paper. White cardstock. It's really pretty. I don't know if you can see that, but you have it at home, so try it out. It is a very, very pretty ink. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat set this because it's pigment ink, so it takes a while to dry. But I'm going to heat set this, and then I'm going to cut this out. Okay, I used the die cut to die cut out the ornament, and I don't think the camera does this justice, but the Delicata ink is very, very pretty. I think Hero Arts has sold me on this. I think I may be ordering a full-size stamp pad in the gold, and I assume they have silver, but if they do, I'll be getting that as well. So what I'm going to be doing is taking some foam, a fun foam, and putting it on the back of this ornament to pop it up. I'm using some scraps that I've had on my table. I'm sure there's much more efficient ways of doing this, but I'm just trying to use up some of the scraps that I had, so forgive the mess. And I'm also going to put some here because I want the base of this to be supported. And I'm going to put a ribbon over that hole, so I don't really care if the fun foam shows through that. Alright, now I'm going to take a couple pieces of Scotch tape, and I cut a small piece of gold thread, and I'm going to tape this on the back of my embossing, and this is what my ornament is going to hang from. I don't know, so about right there I'm going to put the ornament, and I can trim off the excess gold string. That's where the ornament will be. so I can glue that down. And then I'm going to use a glue dot to attach this bow I made out of red ribbon from my stash. If I had cardstock that matched the baker's twine, I would have used that, but I didn't have any. The only thing I don't like about this glue, if you're shopping for glue, this is not my favorite glue. I'm using it up. It takes forever to dry. It's kind of annoying to work with. I prefer the Tombow glue that comes in like the white bottle with the green caps. That works much better. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp Merry Christmas. I chose the Merry Christmas with the cursive font this time because I thought it fit the style of the card better. One thing I really do like about this kit is the different choices in fonts that you can use. And then I'm going to put adhesive onto the back of this embossing panel and attach that to my red card base, and card number 3 is done. I'm going to set something on top of this while it dries. I have a little smudge mark. Thank God for this eraser. Alright, here's card number 3. Again, I wish that ornament showed up. It's beautiful. Alright, for card number 4, I'm inking up the snowflake stamp in that Delicata ink, which I've just recently fell in love with. And I'm just stamping it onto some white cardstock. I think I'm going to make 2 of these cards, so forgive the other snowflake. This is by far my least favorite stamp in the stamp set. I don't know why. I think snowflakes are so pretty, but this one just doesn't grab me. So I'm hoping this Delicata ink can convince me otherwise. So I'm stamping these, and I'm going to use the die to cut them out, but I'm going to do a little bit of creative die cutting so that I'm not using this part of the die. We'll see how that works, and I'll be back. Alright, so for card number 4, I'm using more of this confetti paper, and I'm going to use the other snowflakes in this stamp set. And I'm going to stamp some in a dark brown. Oops. I don't like the way that one's stamped, but I think I can fix that. Okay. And then I'm going to take the other larger snowflake in the set and do it in light brown. Just kind of making my own decorative paper. Okay. And then lastly, I'm going to take the smallest snowflake in the set, and I'm going to add, I really like this ink, so I'm going to add some small snowflakes in this Delicata ink. Just for a little bit of sparkle. And I think that might be it. I don't know. Again, we're just creating our own little background paper. Close this up. And I'm going to mount this onto a larger, oh, I already stamped this once and I put too many dark snowflakes, as you can see. I didn't like that, so I flipped it over to do it again. I like this much better. And I stamped out the snowflake. I actually think I'm going to try to put it over this one that I smeared a little bit here. Let's see. This isn't my favorite stamp in the set. I think I mentioned that. It's kind of an odd snowflake. Alright, I think I'm going to go grab some ribbon. I'll be right back. Okay, I've had a couple of ideas for this card, and I keep changing my mind in the direction that I want to go. So, I don't know what version we're on anymore, but what I'm going to do now is take some brown coordinating ribbon from my stash, and I'm just taping this back onto the mat for this card here. And then I'm also going to take some of that gold ribbon that we used on the last card. And on the back of my snowflake, I'm going to put some adhesive. And I'm going to kind of do like a messy wrap of ribbon here, or whatever this is, cord. I want it to be messy, so I'm not trying to do anything specific with it. I just want little coils of it sticking out all around. I just think it gives it a little something. Just doing loops, very messy loops. Let's see how that looks. Looks pretty good. And I'm going to use some more fun foam. Still working on using up this scrap. I'm going to glue that to the back here of the snowflake. I had really originally intended to use the snowflake as a mat for the sentiment, but I tried a couple different ideas and I didn't like any of them, so I think we're just going to leave the sentiment off the front of this card and just put a message on the inside. And I kind of like that because then you have a card all ready to go. You can customize it as you're getting ready to send that out in the mail. And I can show you what I was thinking. So I made this enjoy, and I was thinking about sticking enjoy right here in the center. I don't know, maybe I'll still do it. What do you guys think? Let's mat this on before we make a final decision. Let's glue this onto the card. So that's the finished card. I don't know, now I kind of like enjoy, so isn't that funny? So all I did was take a circle, I stamped enjoy in the middle. I think I am going to glue this down. We'll go with the original idea. See how fickle card making can be. The other alternative, you can tell me in the comments which one you like better, was I was just going to put a pearl in the center and just leave it. So that was idea number 2, but I think we're going to go with idea number 1 and put enjoy. Oops, I knocked this off center. That's one thing I really don't like about that glue. It takes a while for it to really adhere. Alright, well there's card number 4. Let me know what you think. Alright, for card number 5, I'm using a green card base, and I'm using some green ink from my stash. It's just Gumball Green from Stampin' Up. Haven't used this in a long time. And I'm going to go and create a background on this green cardstock with some snowflakes. I'm doing tone on tone. I don't want these to be the focal point. I'm just breaking up this background so it's not solid anymore. This might be my favorite stamp in this set, is this snowflake. And just for good measure, I will use the smaller one in the smaller spaces. Okay. I don't know if you can see that, but it's real tone on tone. And again, like I said, I was just breaking up the background so it's not solid. Now I'm going to stamp my tree out in that same green. This is kind of an experiment. I'm making these cards as I go instead of having them pre-designed. I might re-stamp this in a darker green. We'll see. Boy. Stamp head must be dry or this is not holding the ink at all. Let me stamp on scrap paper. Yeah. Alright, let me re-ink my pad. Alright, I couldn't find my ink refill, so I just switched to a different green. This is Wasabi from Stampin' Up. So I'm just inking this up and stamping on a piece of white cardstock. And I'm going to use the die to cut this out. Okay, I ended up fussy cutting this out because I didn't like the white border that was around the die. And so, alright, I was looking at this stamp set and I have a crazy idea. There is this star border in here and I noticed that these stars are the same size as the Christmas ones on the Christmas tree. So let's do a little experiment. Worst case scenario, we have to restamp our tree. We are going to ink up just one of the stars in the Delicata ink on here. I'm only inking up the one star and that's kind of cool. So now I have a gold star on my tree. So I'll speed this up so you don't have to watch me do this, but I'm going to take a baby wipe and clean it off between each one. And I'm going to stamp the stars in the tree with the gold ink. Okay, not too bad. I have one little tiny smudge right here, but you know what? I think it's okay. I really like the way it looks. I love that little gold shimmer. I'm kind of debating if I want to put a couple strands of gold up here. I guess we'll wait to see how things go. I'm going to stamp the words at the bottom of this white strip. I'm going to use red ink so they pop out really nicely. I chose Merriest Wishes for this card. Boy, I'm going to stamp stamping it a few times because it wasn't holding the ink very well. There we go. And I also cut a piece of scrap white paper. And what I think I'm going to do is take this Delicata ink and go direct to paper here and make myself some gold paper to match to really accent the gold stars we just put on the tree. Nice. I really love the shimmer in this. If you learned nothing else from this video, please go buy this stamp pad or at least the re-inker for the mini. It is beautiful. Perfect. Alright, I'm going to cut this in half so I can put half on each side of this white panel. So So I found these red gems. I'm not sure I like that bow. I might take that off, but I'm going to keep going with the rest of my card idea, and then we'll see. I found these red gems in my stash, and so on all the large circles in here, I'm going to add ornaments. What I imagine to be ornaments on the tree. And I think the card needs a star, so I'm going to die cut a star to put on the top of the tree, and then we can make a decision about this red ribbon. Alright, so I die cut the star just using a Spellbinder's little star die. I'm going to adhere that to the top of the tree. And I also grabbed my Jelly Roll pen. I didn't like all this white in the tree, and I don't want to add another color, but I'm going to just add a little bit of sparkle. So wherever there's white, I'm just putting a little bit of, it's just a hint of glitter. If you have one of these pens, they're amazing. I just picked it up at like Hobby Lobby or Michael's, one of the two. They're real subtle, but it's just enough to kind of tone down that white. Adds to the Christmassy feel. I think that's it, and that's card number 5. I'm going to take the ribbon off for now. We'll call this card number 5, but we'll see. We might put it back on. I'll take some photos later, but there you go. Your choice if you want to add the ribbon. Alright, for card number 6, I went digging through my stash and I found a tree branch. I think this is from a company called Paper Tray. It's many years old, but it's just a tree branch. I mean, there's a million companies who make stamps like that. And I die cut a stitched panel frame, and I'm inking my tree branch up in brown ink. And I'm going to use my stamp. I'm just setting it here to the side. So I know that I need to stamp this pretty close to the top because this ornament is pretty big. My tree stamp. I should stamp this in my MISTI so I could get a better impression, but it's okay. I'm okay with that. And then there is a leaf that goes on this. Let's see. And since we have green ink out, so there we have our tree branch. And then I'm going to take a Hero Art stamp pad called Mermaid, and I'm going to use that to stamp the ornament. Let's see, I think stamp the ornament. Alright. Then to finish this off, I'm going to get some thread. I think I'm going to look for some silver thread. I just think blue and silver look nicer together than blue and gold. So let me find some silver thread and then we can finish this off. Alright, so now there's some silver thread. I'm going to poke a hole into this panel and I'm going to thread the silver thread through so it looks like the ornament is hanging from there. And we'll finish the top off with either a bow or some of that silver ribbon. I'm going to set this aside for a second and I'm going to take out some dark purple ink. And I pulled out one of my background stamps. It's a plaid. I'm going to ink that up. And I'm going to stamp this onto a purple card base. I'm looking for some scrap paper. Giving us a plaid background, and I chose the purple because it kind of matches the purple that's in this ornament, so I thought that pulled it all together. Okay, I did find some cording to finish off the top of this ornament, but it was a little thicker than what I originally had, so I did replace the piece I put in there, but the process is the same. It's just a slightly different color, a slightly different thickness. And I tied a bow and I'm adhering that with a glue dot to the top of the ornament just to finish that off. I couldn't decide on a sentiment, so I'm still kind of thinking on that, but while I'm doing that, I'm going to adhere some fun foam to the back of this panel. Okay, I did decide to do peace, and I was going to stamp it in purple, but because I want this to stand out, I decided I am going to stamp it in black, just so it is a little bit more pronounced, because it is such a small sentiment. But we're going to put peace. And then we're just going to adhere this down to the card base, and card number 6 will be complete. Here's card number 6. Okay, for card number 7, I die cut another white panel with a stitch border, and I have a circle metal die that I'm going to lightly trace into the inside of this card. And it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but okay, close enough. Alright, so we'll set this aside. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my inks and use my snowflakes to create a wreath. So I'm going to start with navy. And then I'm going to switch to brocade blue. Just trying to fill in the gaps all the way around. Okay, I'm going to go back to navy. Okay, kind of filling that in. And then I think what I'm going to do is a little accent color. I'm going to take that real small snowflake in purple. Doesn't show up real well, but we'll keep going with it a little bit. Just adding it here and there so it blends in. I actually had an idea. So instead of this purple, I'm going to clean this off real good, that same stamp. And I'm going to go into that silver that I had back in like card number 1. Let's see if the silver shows up. Yeah, the silver doesn't show up. I'm going to still add a little bit, but it doesn't really show. It gets kind of lost in there. So, but if anyone looks hard, that's balanced all throughout. Alright, so there is a wreath. And let's put words on the inside. Let's do cheer. And we'll do those with the purple. Okay, I tied a bow with that silver twine, and I'm going to adhere that with a glue dot. And then I'm going to flip this over and add some fun foam to pop up this panel. And then I was digging through my stash and I found some liquid pearls that are silver. And just for a little splash of color here, I just felt like it needed something. I'm going to put some liquid pearls. If you have Nuvo drops, use those. They're better. I just am trying to use up some of the stuff that I've had. It's a really, really simple card, but I like the idea of using the snowflakes to make a wreath. And there you go, you have card number 7. Alright, for card number 8, I had this idea while I was working on that other card. I'm going to do the same thing I did for the other one. I'm going to start, this is a much smaller panel in craft. And I'm going to try to make another wreath. But this time I'm going to use the branch that is in this stamp set. Oops. And I'm going to use the green ink that's sitting right in front of me from the other card. And I'm going to stamp it a couple times before re-inking it. And I can see that didn't work too well, so still do it to be consistent. I love the natural curve that this stamp has in it for this. So even though that second generation stamp isn't super dark, it is giving depth to the wreath, that wreath shape. Okay. So I like really pretty. All right. And I think I'm going to stamp Peace in red. Inside. Okay, so I went through my stash and I found this red glitter paper, and I die cut a bow out of it. So I'm going to attach that down to, oh wait, I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. I wanted to take that same leaf die that we just used to create the wreath, or that, I don't know what this is, a branch to create the wreath. And I've got out a slightly darker shade of green. This is Old Olive. And I'm just going to go in and add a little bit, just add a little bit more depth to the wreath. Okay. I think that having the two shades of green just helps pull it all together a little bit. I decided I was going to put it on a green note card. So now I'm going to adhere that bow down. And then I'm going to use some foam to pop up and then my last step is going to be adding some berries. This time I'm going to be using red stickles. I thought the glitter, these have glitter in them, which matched the bow. Cool. I think that's balanced. I really like this card. I might make more of these. This was very simple to do, very elegant. I hope you like this one. Alright, for card number 9, I'm inking up this background stamp. I think it's from Hero Wars, but I'm not sure. It's a bunch of stars. I'm sure you have something similar in your stash of stamps. I'm inking it up with the gold ink. I did try to ink it up with the copper ink, and I really, really like it. But I also stamped the star in the copper ink, and I didn't like that so much. It was kind of, it was more pink in color, and I wanted it more gold color, so I re-stamped it in gold and fussy cut that out. So I did that step already off camera. So here's the star stamped in the gold delicata and fussy cut out. And now what I'm going to do is on the back of the cardstock that I put the copper, I'm going to put the gold so that it matches that star. I do really like the copper stars, but I wanted to match my gold large star, and I didn't care for the copper large star. I don't know, it just had like a pink look, and I didn't think that was the look I wanted for this card. Alright, so now we have a background with gold stars, which is awesome. And now we can put this background stamp away. I also die cut. I have no idea who makes this because I wish they'd label them. But there is this die that cuts out like a sunburst, and I die cut that to kind of look like an explosion out of my star. So that I was kind of going for. And the pigment ink on those stars are a little wet, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this aside, and while that's doing that, I'm going to cut some fun foam for the back of my star. So I have more of that gold thread that we used on a previous card, so I'm just going to cut a bunch of that, and I'm going to put some adhesive on the backs of this fun foam. And I'm going to try doing it this way where you wrap it around your fingers. I haven't had much luck with this. And just see what it looks like. Yeah, I always end up with like a deflated, I don't know. Maybe if I scrunch it up. I don't have much luck with this method of string curling, but we'll play a second here. I just want it to look chaotic, like an explosion. I don't know, that actually kind of does look chaotic. I don't know, what do you think? Yep, I'm going with it. Kind of pushing that down into the vellum. And I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to put some adhesive on the back of our star panel. And adhere that to a white card base. Trying to be careful not to smudge any of my stars. And then I'm going to put more adhesive. Anywhere that's behind the star, I'm going to put adhesive. I love vellum, but the problem with vellum is that you can see through it. So the best answer to that is to put all of your adhesive behind the elements on your card so that you can't see them. So on a scrap piece of paper I stamped Happy New Year, and I'm going to create a little banner from that scrap piece of paper. And I'm going to adhere that into the center of our star, and we now have a Happy New Year card. Happy New Year. Alright, for card number 10, I decided to make a shaker card. I think I got everything die cut already. I made a panel and then die cut the tree out of it. So what I'm going to do now is take some adhesive and glue down my acetate. And then I have a piece of fun foam that I also die cut, and I'm going to glue that down, and that'll make the well for my shaker. Throw this away. And I cut another panel the same size as the front. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this banner that came in the kit, and I'm going to use the ink to stamp. Oops, I grabbed copper. I think I want gold. Let's grab the gold. Set the copper side. Ink that up. And this is going to be seen in the back of the shaker. So I'm going to stamp several of these banners. I don't know what you call them. Stringy star things. So there's some decoration in the back of the shaker. And then let's set this on top so we can kind of get a feeling for what that looks like. I might do one more at the top. Okay. So as we look through our shaker, that's what we get. And it's kind of similar to the stamped image of the tree in there. Okay, I decided that the card base is going to be red, so I just like we did before, I'm going to take a few of these stamps to break up that background so that it doesn't look so solid. And I am going to use that star banner in part of this. And making sure that they try to start and stop these either on or off the card or under where the panel's going to sit. I did die cut Joy and a star and glued them on, and I'm letting them dry a little bit before I start trying to put everything together. Alright, so I did some stars. I'm also going to do some of that really pretty snowflake. Wherever I can, and if it overlaps, I'm totally okay with that. Again, we're just doing this to break up the background a little bit so that it's, you know, more interesting to look at. And lastly, I think I'm going to go in and do some with that real tiny, I don't know, snowflake, lack of a better word. Well, I think we've got that nice and stamped up. So we'll put the red aside. You guys see just that little bit of dimension. I like tone on tone. Okay. We'll set this aside. This should be dry, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some green sequins to our shaker. Add a few more. I am a horrible judge. I always either add too much or too little. And I got a random star. Okay. I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to then seal this up, putting glue all the way around my tree. Kind of neat. I like that. Alright, and then I'm going to put glue on the back of this panel. And glue that to our card base. And card number 10 is finished. If you hung in there with me this long, I really appreciate you watching. If you enjoyed it, please leave me a comment. That really inspires me to keep doing this. I almost didn't do it this month with the craziness of Thanksgiving and having a little baby. I was kind of like, oh, do I really need to do it? And I admit I wasn't in love with the stamp set, so I almost just said, but then so many of you guys were so positive about last month. I was like, oh, I don't want to let anybody down, so I did it. It is 2:30 in the morning, but I did it, and I really hope you enjoyed the cards. This one I think is my favorite. And I really look forward to hearing what you have to say about the stamp set and about the cards I made, which one's your favorite. Please subscribe, and if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.